Hi, everybody. Welcome to lesson 3 of Fire Edit's How to Write series. Last week, we took you through the perfect angle, title, and intro. And this week, we are building upon that once again by getting into the body copy and more specifically, the 7 golden rules for writing well. So I've crafted these rules along with different sources that I've pulled from over the years. I've taught them to my staff writers, freelance writers, in order to strengthen their skills. They're based on some common issues and struggles I've seen working with writers and editors, and they're really meant to just improve your writing skills, especially when it comes to the body copy. Now, what is body copy? It is the middle section of your piece between the intro and the conclusion that really holds the meat of the story. Most often when you're writing a personal essay, an op-ed, or a news or service article, there's a few different points that you want to make, and those points will make up the sections or paragraphs in your body copy. Now, if you're writing a book, that's a different beast, and your body is essentially all the chapters and the hundreds of pages that make up that book. So while a short form piece of writing, you want to get through those points pretty quickly and clearly, a book, you can take so much more of your time. You can go on side tangents and you can have flashbacks and you can, really develop characters and plots and timelines and events, scenes, all of that stuff. So I think that's important to distinguish the difference between body copy in regards to short form writing versus book writing before we get into these golden rules, because the rules can be slightly bent depending on what you're writing. So with that in mind, let's get into these 7 golden rules for writing well. So rule number 1 is write clearly for your audience. This stems from some of the things that we discussed last week when, perfecting your angle, your title, your intro. You always want to have your audience in mind, and you want to make sure that you're writing clearly for them. So that means saying what you mean simply and directly in terms and with words and phrases that they'll understand. Rule number 2 is to structure your body with intention. So unless you're trying to intentionally build tension or you're following a specific timeline, you want to get to the most important points of your piece of work first. And writing an outline is a tried and true method that so many writers use to help them do this. So think of it like a blueprint for your piece. And at the top, you've got your title, angle, and intro. Then for the body, you can list the 2 to 5 points that you're looking to make, followed by the takeaway, which is your conclusion. And then for these main points that you want to make within your body, this is where you start to list how you would do that. So is there a study or research or data that can back up a point you're trying to make? Should you interview an expert for their knowledge or insight into that topic? Or is there an anecdote or an example from like what's happened in the news recently, or a cultural example that you can use to illustrate one of your points? This is where you'll start to map out those things. Like, okay, I need an interview. Okay, I need a study. And yes, I need like a real world, relevant, timely example. You're not going to act on those things yet, but this is where you're listing them so that the structure of your entire piece falls into place. Okay, rule number 3, show, don't tell. So this is super important when you're writing. There's nothing worse than someone recapping something in their writing style without letting you experience it yourself through all the details and the quotes and anecdotes and setting the scene. There's an art to showing rather than telling. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you're forming a complete picture for the reader that covers absolutely every detail. So depending on the platform you're writing for, visuals can help a lot. So if you're writing for digital, for instance, this is where we love to embed videos, social media posts, images, and other visual aids to really complement what we're writing in the body copy. And the same is true for print, but those will take the forms of like charts, infographics, timelines, fun little, designs that the team can work with you on to really bring your words to life. Rule number 4 is to use active voice. So active voice, we love it because it's clear, strong, and direct. So the subject does the action. Whereas in passive voice, the subject is acted upon. And that can sound really removed and overly formal. It does work in certain instances, like news writing, for instance. but we generally advise to just use passive voice for emphasis or intentional ambiguity. So one insider fire tip when using the active voice or trying to figure out, are you using it or not, is to ask yourself, who's doing the action? If it's unclear or delayed with the way that you wrote it, you're probably using passive voice and you want to switch it around. Rule number 5 is to stick to the correct tense. So there's 3 tenses: past, present, and future. And depending on when and where you use that, you're grounding the action in a specific time frame. So obviously use past tense when you're describing something that already happened. Use present tense for events happening in real time, and then use future tense when writing about something that will happen later. Rule number 6 is to let your personality shine through. I personally love this. So often I've worked with writers who are used to writing like in the brand's way, in the brand's voice and tone. And that's really great when you're a staff writer or you're pitching to a specific publication that has a very like rigid, here's our voice and tone. But when it's your own writing, and especially when it comes to like personal essays and op-eds, and maybe you start your own Substack, you want to have your own authentic, original, unique voice. And you can do this by really letting your personality shine through, by using humor, fun turns of phrases. You can use it about the way you approach subjects or like tee them up. And you can also create your signature writing style by having like different delivery or tones, visuals, story arcs, all of the above. My number one advice for this is just to try to have fun with it if the piece allows you to be a key player within it. When you're writing a news article, nope, you just need to get to the facts straight away. That's not a place where you can infuse your personality, but for a lot of other types of writing, you can, and that's what makes it fun. And finally, rule number 7 is review as you go. So this is where we start to get into the editing portion of writing. But basically what this means is after you've written a full paragraph or section within your body copy, you want to read it. So read it first to catch any like obvious spelling or grammar mistakes. Then you want to reread it again, preferably out loud, to check the clarity and flow. So what do I mean by this? Writing has a rhythm, right? And when you read your words out loud, you can pick up on that rhythm. Is there run-on sentences that are dragging on too long? Do you have some filler words that as you read them out loud are getting tripped up on, or really clunky phrasing that just doesn't sound right? By doing this reread number 2 out loud, you can find those, tweak them, remove them, edit them. And then finally, you should do a third read, if not 100 reads before moving on and submitting your piece for review. The more you write, the more you practice the skill of writing in and of itself, the more you'll find that you're in a constant state of writing, reading, rewriting, and rereading until you've crafted the perfect piece. You feel really good about it. You've read it 100 times and you're ready to submit or press publish or, close that diary. So those are the 7 great rules. They're golden rules for writing well. I hope you learned something new. And now we're going to apply it with writing prompt number 3. So this is building off of your writing prompt number 2, where you took a juicy or messy idea and you wrote some angles, you wrote some titles, and you have an intro, which is so fantastic. So now we're going to build on that by writing an outline for the rest of the piece. So step 1 is write down your title, angle, and intro again. Then step 2 is to list 2 to 5 main points that you'd like to make in your body copy that support your angle. Again, think of how you can best illustrate each point. So are you finding a study? Should you interview somebody? Is there an anecdote that you can pull from, or an example from recent news, stuff like that? Start to noodle on that and then jot down which avenue you plan to take. So, okay, for point number 1, I definitely need a study. For point number 2, I want to interview an expert. For point number 3, this just happened the other day on social media. I think it exemplifies what I'm trying to get across so perfectly. I'll definitely include that. And then finally, within your intro for the conclusion, you want to bring it all home with a strong takeaway for the reader, and then leave them with at least one thing they can do next based on the angle you just proved, the entire story they just read. You get the point. So the deadline for this is this Friday, June 13th at noon, your local time. You can ask me any questions as you go. I'm going to fire up that Q&A this Thursday in our subscriber chat. But of course, you can always reply to this email and ask me any questions. And yeah, I wish you luck and I hope you enjoyed lesson 3 of Fire Edit's How to Write series.